Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we are joined by Paul Karasik, author of Getting High on Leadership. Paul and I are wandering through his book section by section to promote conscious leadership and look at really what is conscious leadership and how to achieve it, how to find it. Today's brick in that wall that we're building is called the Leader's Toolbox, and it can be found on page 86 of the book. And as always, you can grab an ebook from the link below. And Paul, welcome once again. We've got an interesting chapter here looking at that Leader's Toolbox and really what do they have at their disposal to solve the problems before them?
Yeah, well, we started to hit on it in the last chapter.
Indeed.
How do you fix the problem? We have this goal, we have this objective, we have this end state that the leader is pointing to. That's the definition of leadership. And the people are the way to get there. And the people create, and there's problems and there's issue. The people are the path to achieving success. I just had one of my longtime clients. He wanted to accomplish certain things, and I said, I'm not going to play this game with you anymore. You're not addressing the toolbox that needs to be in place for you to succeed. So let's figure out a way. In other words. If you don't have the right tools to be a leader, then you can't accomplish anything. What is the tools of the leader? If you don't have those in place, you can't accomplish anything. So an artist has paintbrush, a musician has a guitar, piano player has a piano, comedian has a microphone, a gardener has gardening tools. What does a leader have? What is the skill set of the leader? And it's very simple. It's called communication. That's the skill set.
That's the go-to tool you need to be grabbing, right? It needs to be right up front in the tool belt, ready to go.
It's right there. It's the tool. It's the one that's always in your belt. And that's communicating the passion, the mission, the vision, the values on a regular basis. That communication skill is an art and a science. Many, many leaders don't even address the science issue of it. How do you give a good presentation? What is active listening? How do you facilitate discussion? And they don't even take enough interest in that to understand. It'd be like a guitar player. Like, I'm a guitar player, but I don't know chords, and I really can't play a lead line. So what do you? You don't have any skills.
Reading
so
tabs for Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, the tabs are there. Exactly. I mean, there's nothing there. It's the same with leadership. A leader without communication skills. There's nothing there. And
you're not actually leading, just as a painter's not painting anything without a brush. Yeah. I think another section too, where like on face value, it's maybe like, oh, okay, like it's a simple concept, but then there's depth to it, right? That if you really look at whether or not you have those tools at your disposal already, and like how honed that tool is, and how good are you at using that communication element. And I think in the previous section, I was asking a question I think that's answered by this chapter. And really, you have that mindset, and now you want to instill that mindset into your followers or into your company or family.
Right.
How do you do it, right? Well,
Yeah.
right here is your answer, I think. There's a communication-shaped screwdriver ready to go,
Yeah.
or paintbrush.
Yeah, it's communication. So it's communication. I mentioned asking questions, listening, facilitating discussions, coaching, training. All of these are skill sets of communication, subsets of communication. And if a leader doesn't even have the basic instinct to become really good at those fundamental things, how effective can they be? Great leaders are usually great speakers. Terrible person, horrible, evil, personified. But watch some of the speeches that Adolf Hitler gave. How do you get millions and millions and millions of people to follow you in this really horrible vision?
Yeah,
and it's through
definitely
communication. It's through communication.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign of the potential of charisma or communication with leadership, and how much folks want that in their leader, and if they find that, and that how willing they may be to follow. Yeah, I think
What does a leader really have? I mean, I play guitar. I got my guitar. I got my amp. And to perform in that function as a musician, I've got stuff, like I say in this chapter. A leader has nothing but communication. That's their fundamental thing. And they're not giving it attention, which is absurd. It's really
right. A leader in the corporate world, again, may be more like, all right, you're going to take this course on how to manage better, or how to track project timelines more efficiently. It's like, okay, I could see the value of that for sure. Like, efficiency is great in the business world, but that course in itself is not building a better leader per se. A lot of the actions that leaders maybe get involved in when they should be with communication, or they should be using communication, is that they're relying on their managerial skills and their managerial aspects of the role instead of that communication.
Yeah, stuff. Yeah,
right.
Communication is not stuff. That's, again, it's a reflection of consciousness. To be conscious enough that I should have that conversation, to be conscious enough of the pain or discomfort or suffering or whatever of the person that I'm speaking to.
Yes, and I'd say embrace the silence too when you're having those difficult conversations with folks, because I've had some teams where we try to have open discussions, and the first few of those are crickets. I mean, it's like, all right, what does everyone think about that? And I'm taking a drink of coffee, and I take another one, and like three more, and it's still no one's speaking up, and it's like, we've got one of these teams here. And seeing those folks kind of get their confidence and start to speak up, it's almost like as soon as they do that, the change is noticeable in other areas of the company. And to be able to boil down all the success to just, will this team speak up when you ask them to, or will they quietly wait for the next order? It seems like you're kind of a reductionist way to look at leadership, but man, that's the crux of it. I think as you're pointing out here, that without that communication, the team's they're just doing their job. There's not
doing a mediocre
not really
job.
Anything forcing them on it. Yeah, or inspiring them to do better or to do a great job.
Or reconnecting them with the mission and the vision, or taking an interest in people to the point where they feel recognized, and they feel they're appreciated. And those are all the subtle communication skills, and integrity, that's obvious through all this. But you got to be careful about separating technical skills from leadership skills. There is some, we've given some technique and so on and so forth, but it's not, they're two different things.
Right. Right.
You know,
You could be wonderful at planning the road trip, but to sit in the car and manage the family and keep everybody happy throughout that entire road trip is
that's
like
great.
a totally different skill than the logistics work you did beforehand.
That's such a great analogy. I like that. Yeah.
I know
It's
that.
true. It's the consciousness of, when are we going to eat? When are we going to stop?
Yeah,
Take a break.
We've got an emergency, right? Someone's sick. Well, that's not on the roadmap. Like, well, you better address it.
Exactly. And that takes empathy, sympathy, and time for people to voice themselves. I mean, that's so critical. We talked about the command and control approach to business versus the collegial and collaborative approach.
Right,
You're going to go back
difference.
you're going to go back to command and control, and automatically it's a default because
Right.
and we know that doesn't produce the best results. It's the more collaborative it is with any group, the more new ideas come up. Great, collaboration means usually more productivity, creativity.
Right. And what do you think, if we continue the tool analogy here, with a painter using a brush, it's not that a brush solves the painter's problem. It's that a Kolinsky Sable size 1 brush is the perfect one for this. And maybe a size 8 is better for broad strokes. And then there's a dry brushing brush and a detailing brush. So if we look at the leader's toolbox with communication, would you say there are different forms or different aspects of communication that are, a tool in and of themselves? Like maybe personal communication versus company-wide, or maybe media type communication.
Yeah, they definitely. But let's keep it on the track of leader, team. What is the best?
Yeah.
Let's look at that one for a second. What's that one? And that one is that kind of communication is very, very different than a lot of the other stuff you're talking about. And to do that properly, we have to be present with the person. That's what they respond to. Present in our body, present in our consciousness, present with them. And that's how we affect them. But the approach, and here's technique, has to be personalized to really be effective. So if I'm going to just do treat you, talk to you, communicate to you the way I do to everybody else, forget about it. It's, might as well not do anything. Don't even talk. Because I'm not going to hear you when you speak in that language that you would speak to that person.
Right.
But so it's got to be personalized. And, when
that
we
way I'm
care
not coming at you like reading from a book, like, okay, Paul, how are you doing today?
Yeah, well, that's
great. All right. What's this next step? There's no personalization in that at all.
None at all. And that's the corporate. That's why we get turned off by the corporate thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's corporate customer service, we just want to kill them. Because they're giving all stock lines, and
they can be the nicest individuals ever, but they're working with their tools and they've been given a limited set.
Yeah. And they only respond in a certain way and say certain things. But yeah, I remember years ago I met with I think he was the center for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was also the captain of the team. And I had lunch with him. First of all, the guy was huge. I mean, his neck was the size of a sequoia tree. His hands were like nothing I'd ever seen, and he had Super Bowl rings on his fingers. A couple of them at that point. They had won some. So this is quite a while ago, but they had won some stuff. And I said, and he wanted to get more involved with kind of the stuff we're doing. And he's a really great guy, also captain of the team. And I said, what's the secret? what do you think the secret for the success of the team was from the point of the coach, right? Because the coach, in a sense, is one of the leaders of the team, right? We'd agree to that. Coach,
Right.
to a large degree, leads the team, and the captain a little bit, some, but it's the coach. I said, what'd you learn about from your coach? Because this coach took you to the Super Bowl. And he said, what I learned was that you have to speak to each person individually. I said, what do you mean? He said, there'd be some guys, and this, by the way, I can't think of the coach's name. I'm not that big of a sports fan to begin with, but people would know his name. He would go up to some people and he would, come here, man. You pet them. You're okay. Things are going to be good. I know you got sacked 8 times just now, but it's like, stay focused. You're going to be. Another guy, he would say, hey, MF. I don't have to fill in the words there.
Yeah.
Get your blah, blah moving. What do you think? You're a piece of poopy. And he would say these horrible things because each person needed a different. He said, that's the most important thing I learned from the coach was he was different with each person. He knew intuitively
which approach is going to get them
which
moving.
approach was going to work with that player. And he knew he had to be nasty and hard on some people. They just wouldn't respond. And he knew the people to it. I see it with my daughters, they having 2 daughters, how they both respond to completely different things.
Yes. I can only imagine how that must be, seeing both kids grow up and seeing their responses to similar circumstances. I only have one kid right now, so I don't see that dichotomy, but I can only imagine with the 2, just be like, oh, okay, I see where this is actually going to be a problem, even though it wasn't for your sister.
Exactly. And I need to approach, and they both need different approaches.
Yes.
That's a very different approaches,
to look at leading the team in general, right? If you're parenting all these kids, they all need that attention, right? They all need that conversation, and they have that unique mindset and worldview.
Yeah, and the person really feels heard when you're customizing and personalizing the way you're approaching and not treating them like a machine and like an unimportant thing, but so important. Reference things in their life and talk to them about things that are meaningful. That personalization, that's the leader's toolbox about everything, is that communicate on the personal level and speak to the person, recognize them in the communication, adapt the communication. If it's across the board, we're doing this, that's okay. Understanding, having empathy, sympathy, how it's going to affect that person. And even if you can't make it better, the empathy and the sympathy for the person becomes a really amazing, powerful tool to kind of let the flow.
Yes. Assess your tools as a leader and a manager. Folks, rely solely on that communication tool when it's time to address these challenging things with your team or with your followers, then your family. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and get into the consciousness side of things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this section. As always, grab a link from the ebook below, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_The Conversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.